The next topic is subqueries. In a previous video, we learned about the max and min function. We used the max function to find the highest value within a column, and we also used the min function to find the lowest value within a column or within a range of values. Let's switch over to SQL Server and try out a couple of these queries again. Let's print out the longest page within our book, within our books table. And we have to use the max function. And when we run this, it tells us that the longest page within our books table is 864. Let's also print out our lowest review. And when we run this, we know our lowest review is 550. So using the max and min function does give us that value that we're looking for. But what if we want to find out, because maybe it's not really valuable to just see what the minimum review is. It's more logical that we want to also find out what book has that minimum review, or the title of the book that has a minimum review, or the author that that wrote that book that has the minimum review. Now, the way we've been querying, you will think all you need to do is just, we have our minimum reviews, we have a comma to separate that column, and then we just enter a title to find out what the name of that book is. So let's try that and let's see if it works. So let's see, we want to see the minimum review, but we want to see the book that has the minimum review. So again, logically, we would want to have the title, based on the way we've been writing our queries, and we say from books, right? So this is supposed to give us the minimum, the book with the lowest review, and we want to say the title of that book. When we run this query, well, it comes up with an error, and the error says book.title is invalid in the select list because it's not contained in either an aggregate function or the group by clause. Now, when we think about the max and min function, we know they are they belong to aggregate functions, and the way aggregate function works is that you have a collection of records that are grouped together, and then an aggregate function is passed on those records or on those groups. What SQL Server is telling us right now is that, well, we are using the min function and it should be used within an aggregate, within a group. But that's not really what we want. All we want to see is we want to see the book that has the lowest review and the title of that book. That's really all we're requesting for. But the main function is really not giving us that answer. And if we were to use the max as well, so let's use the max function here as well. And now we just add title because we want to display the book with the longest pages within the books table. If we run the query, we get the same result. So why is this happening? Like I explained, it's because SQL Server is expecting some sort of group to perform the max function on. But we really cannot use a group function. We can't group this because when you think about it, if you think about our title, we have 23 unique titles. So we cannot group those titles. It's just going to come up as individual title. And if we group them, it's pretty much the same as giving us a list of all of our books and the pages of those books. And let's try that. So let's try what SQL is saying. So we'll go select max pages, and we want to see the title. So from books, and now we want to group by, let's say we group by title. when we run this query, now it's giving us the list of all of our books and pretty much the the number of pages of those books, which is not what we want. All we wanted to see is give us the max page, which is I believe, where is it? 864 Game of Thrones, right? This is just the record we needed to show, to print out. So this is the problem with using min and max. And is there a solution? And of course there is, and the solution is using subqueries. So what is a subquery? A subquery is a query within another query. The inner query returns data that is used in the outer query. Let's switch over again to SQL Server and see this in action. I will launch a new query box, and I will call these subqueries, and just say solution to max and min function. And of course, subqueries are not only used to solve the max and min function, and we will see that in this video. So let's write that query again. And remember, what we're trying to do is we want to find, I'm just going to write this out first, select max, and let's go with pages from books. And what we're trying to do here really is to find out not just this, the longest book, but we want to find out the title as well. Now, the way subquery works is this. We have one query, and then we have another query, which I would write now. So, and once I write, then I would explain. So let's just say we select title. Let's start with, let's select author, first name, author, last name, and then title from books. Okay, so we're familiar with this. This would select our author's first name, author's last name, and the title from books. But what we're trying to do now is that we're going to nest this query inside of this query. So I'm going to take this off. And then I would say where pages equals. And once I'm done with this, I would explain. Okay. So what we're doing is this. Think of this as two separate queries. We have this first query, which is selecting the maximum pages from our books. It's printing out for us the book with the longest pages, right? So what we're doing in this, I'm just going to bring this further down, okay? So we're saying here that once we get this result set, and this is going to give us 864, then find within our books table the book, well, the author's first name, the author's last name, the title, where the pages equals 864. So think about all of this code, all of this as 864, because that's really what it is. Once we run this, it gives us this 864. So think of it that this 864 is now being replaced by all of this code. So the subquery, this is the select max pages from books. This is the inner query, which is the subquery. And then the select author's first name, author's last name, title from books, where pages equals, that's the outer query. Okay. And the way it works is that the inner query is first processed. So once we pass this, SQL processes the inner query first, and then the result that comes from based on the result that we get from the inner query, the outer query is then processed. So to join those two together, and let me do this, just gonna bring this down. Okay. So essentially we write the first query. I mean, we can of course write the inner query first. So we have the inner query, which is now in brackets, right? So we have the outer query, then equals to, because this is going to give us an absolute value of 864. So we're saying print out for me all this information, author's first name, author's last name, the title, and we can also include, let's include pages as well. So print out all these columns for me from books where the pages equals 864, because all of this, like I said earlier, gives us this result 864. When we run this query, so now it gives us the author's first name, author's last name, the title, as well as the pages. Let's also find out the author's first name, the author's last name, the reviews, and also the review within our books table that has the lowest review. So we go and we can start with the inner query. So we have select main, reviews, from books. So we know when we run this query, it will give us the book with the lowest review, okay, which is 550. But now we want to find out which the title of the book that has that review, and would like to know the author's names as well, like the first name and the last name. So we have select, have author first name, we have author last name, and we have reviews. Sorry, reviews, enter, from books, where reviews equals all of this query. And when we run this, we get Catherine Johnson, and the total number of reviews is 550. And of course, if we wanted to have the title, we can include the title in the list we have here. Now we know that we could have used the top one command to retrieve the same information, but top one doesn't always work, because if you think about it again, the top command really only retrieves by record, right? So let's quickly do that. Let's say we want select, let's say I'm not going to include the top command yet. So let's say we want the author first, actually let's just say author last name, and we want to see reviews, reviews from books, and let's say we order by reviews, and we'll have it ascending, so we'll have it at default, because what we really want is the book with the lowest review, right? And actually let's use the same, let's add author first name as well, it's fine. About comma, what did I do? Okay, so now we want to have the first record, right? Top one. Now when we run this, it gives, okay, and this is again part of the problem. So right now, the top one doesn't even really work, because the first record for us is a null value. And I know we talked about this earlier. So if we go top 2, which now gives us Catherine Johnson. So the problem with using top 1 when we're trying to find maximum value is that there could have been 5, 10, 20 different books that adds the same number of reviews. So by just using top 1 or top 2 or it doesn't really help in this situation when we're trying to find the books that has the the lowest review or the highest review, because it just retrieves records. But using the max or min function is, so if there were books that had the same number of reviews, so let's say there were 10 books that had 550 reviews, equal reviews, by using the main function, it would actually list out all of those books. So as opposed to like the top one or top whatever we choose to use that just retrieves record based on rows, using the main or the max function is the most appropriate one, because then that actually gives us all of the records that is either minimum or maximum. Let's try two more examples using our customers table. And the first one is, let's print out, and we'll be using subquery, print out the customer who spent the most. All right. So the column that has the amount spent by each of our customers is the order amount. So the inner query will be to find the max of the order amount. So let's select max order amounts. So from customers, right? So we know that this would give us that amount, and that amount is $3,300. Well, just 3,300. So now if we want to, let's say we want to find out the customer ID and the name of the amount. What we see the amount, but we want to print out the customer ID, the customer's name, as well as the amount. So we have the outer query. So we have select, we have customer ID, we have customer name, and what else? So we need as well the order amounts from customers. I'm just gonna bring this down, tab, bring this down. So we want the customer ID, the customer name, the order amount from customers. But now we take this out. So say where, and just come down, order amount equals, and it will equals all of this. So let's run that. So we have the customer ID, the customer name, Femi Oshun, as well as the order amount. Let's try one more example. So our inner query would be to print out the customer IDs of all of our customers in the city of Vancouver. Okay, so we print out, so let's select, we want the customer ID from customers where city equals Vancouver. All right. So now we have 3 customers in the city of Vancouver. Now the next step is the outer query will be to print out, we'd like to see the customer ID, we'd like to see the customer name, as well as the order amount of those customers. All right. So I'll just put this down. So we select customer ID, we want the customer name, as well as the order amount. From customers. All right, that's the remaining information we'd like to see. I'm just going to enter this tab. Okay, so we have the inner query that shows us, that prints out all of the IDs of customers within the city of Vancouver. Now, Earlier on, we used the equals, and one thing to keep in mind is that when we use the equal, actually, when we run the inner query, it returned one record, right? And we can try that again. So the previous examples we've done. So when we run this, it gives us one record. The same thing when we run this, it gives us one record. And when we run this, it gives us one record. And we were able to just say equals because we just had one record, which was absolute. But in this scenario, if we look at this inner query or the subquery, we have three records. Now, if you think back to when we use the in operator, the in operator helps us to tag or add more than one up. If we wanted to retrieve more than one column or more than one, instead of just saying select all from from customers where city equals Vancouver, we may want to restrict that list and say where city equals Vancouver. Equals Vancouver, Tokyo, Lagos, whatever the case may be, right? So in this scenario, since we have multiple records that this inner query is retrieving or printing out, instead of saying equals, what we would then say is in, and then we would have our okay. So we have select customer ID, customer name, order amount from customers. So we have a where clause where customer ID in, and now this, okay? And we'll go through this again. So we know that this inner query is giving us this list, okay? The outer query allows us to print out the customer ID that belongs to this, print out the customer name, the amount that belongs to these IDs, right? Instead of using the equals to, because we have all those multiple records, now we're using in, because then that allows us to capture all of the individual records that's within the inner query, okay? So when we run this, now it prints out the customer ID, the customer name, as well as the order amount. And of course, if we want, we can order this. We can order by let's order by amount, by order amount, and we'll do descending. All right. Execute. So we now have the results of the records ordered by the amount. So amount is spent the most in the city of Vancouver. And maybe we can just make a comment right here and say customers in the city of Vancouver. All right, so that's that's all for subqueries. Doing our try it yourself, we would practice more with subqueries.